we blow things up to celebrate somebody failing to blow things up. One of my favorite things about reading, actually, that is one of the things that makes a book 5 stars for me. But like a fully molten piece of glue on my hand. Hello everybody, welcome to my first reading vlog of November. I am so excited for my reading this month. I'm just about to film a video. I'm having a full YouTube day today, so I have 1 video to film and then I have 3 I can edit. So I'm just going to essentially edit as much as possible throughout the afternoon. But I thought that I would come in and kick this vlog off first. So if you watch my Bookopoly TBR for November, you will know that I'm doing things a little bit differently this month. We are going to be rolling as we go. The first time I have ever done a TBR like this, I started off on Booktube 4 years ago not really doing TBRs, and then as I got into Booktube and doing readathons, I started to do TBRs more, and then obviously I started Bookopoly 3 years ago. So I haven't ever mood read, at least not in the last 4 years. I used to mood read because I didn't know there was another way of reading, like back in the day. But before we get started on the rolling as we go, I have a couple of books that I need to read. First book I'm reading is Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence, and that is because this one is a delayed Patreon pick. I should have read this back in September. It just kept getting pushed back and back, not because I didn't want to read it either. I'm really excited to read this one, but last month I picked the majority of the books that I was going to be picking up using polls, and it never won a poll. So I'm going to start off by doing this so that it is done. It's one of the only books that I have to read this month, and I'm currently already 32 pages into it. So this one is a sequel to Red Sister. It is an adult high fantasy grimdark series, but it also has a little bit of sci-fi in it. I'm not sure whether the sci-fi is going to be prominent to the actual narrative of this series at any point, but the origins of this fantastical world, I want to say, and some of the origins of the fantastical elements are actually sci-fi, which I remember being surprised about when I picked up the first book. But this series is a story of Nona Grey, who is about to be executed when she's saved from the block by an assassin nun, and this nun takes her to the convent of Sweet Mercy, where everybody is trained to be assassins. It has an assassin school setting, which I really loved, and it really went into detail in Red Sister about the actual classes, which I enjoyed. And I can't remember how old Nona is when we start. She might be somewhere around 12, but she might be younger than that. And in this one we start out where she's 15, and it's all kind of building up to something that happens that you see in the in-betweens of the sections in Red Sister, which I know I didn't explain that very well, but the books are broken up into sections, and in between every section you get this glimpse of where the characters are at whatever point in the future it's chronicling, where the characters are in very different positions to where they are in the actual bulk of the story. So I'm very excited to build up to that point and see like how we got there, because it's things like people who are friends are suddenly enemies, and people have different allegiances and are on different sides. So I'm really intrigued to obviously see how we get to that point. I'm 32 pages in so far. This is going to be a slow read for me. Red Sister took me an entire week to read because the text isn't incredibly tiny, but it's not large at all. It is smaller than average, and it's not necessarily, it is a little bit dense as well. So because I read the first book, I think I read it way back in March, it's going to take me a little while to be familiar with the terminology and stuff again, although there is something that I love. There is a recap at the beginning, and it's broken down into bite-sized chunks, which was really helpful. And then just generally I feel like the writing style paired with all of the fantasy terminology makes this quite a slow read. It's also super atmospheric as well, so I feel like the natural reading pace of this book is a little bit slower. But the 32 pages I've read so far I've really enjoyed, and I'm excited to dive back into it tonight. But for now I have a video to film, and then I'm gonna get some lunch and then crack on with some editing. So that big YouTube day that I'm supposed to be having is not going as well as planned. I've just finished editing and scheduling and stuff the first video. I were 3 that I wanted to get done today, and it's 4:15, so I'm finishing in 45 minutes. But I'm just popping in because I got a whole stack. I'll show you the stack. I got a whole ton of mail today, and I was really excited because I had no idea what any of this stuff was. And then I remembered that last week I started ordering my Christmas presents. So 2 of them are actually Christmas presents, so I can't show you what they are, although they are really cool. But I did get a box from Jess's shop. So if you are unaware who Jess is a wonderful, wonderful person, and she has a shop. It is called Magic Moonchild on Etsy. I will of course link it in the description box, but she makes resin things. So she makes bookmarks, but she also makes some other stuff. And Jess is also one of my patrons, and when I was doing one of my, I think it was just reading sprints a couple of weeks ago, I said that she had an item in her shop that I absolutely adored, but she'd made it in pink, and I'm just not a pink person, like you guys have probably noticed. I'll wear a bit of pink makeup every now and again, but you're never going to see me wearing pink, and you're never going to see any pink in my house unless it's like a dusky pink to offset like a forest green. But that is besides the point. Jess very kindly went out of her way to make the items that I wanted in green, and they were these resin Monstera leaf coasters that are so pretty. So these are 2 resin coasters with gold flakes, and the resin is green and glittery as well, and these are beautiful. I'm gonna put them on some dark wood surfaces, I think, because I think they'll look really good. So I'll put one in here on that table over there, and maybe one in my bedroom, and I might ask Jess to make me a couple more when my bedroom is sorted, because I know I keep talking about this bedroom project that I'm never going to work on, am I? Like, let's be real. Honestly, it's going to be my 2022 project, and you better hold me to that. But my bedroom, I'm essentially painting it white. It's an off-white at the minute. We're going to get a new carpet because the carpet's pink, which is why I'm so offended by it. The furniture in there is all going to be like a walnut or an oak, and the accent color is going to be emerald green. So they would look amazing in my bedroom when it actually looks how I want it to. But because I was placing an order, I also picked up another resin bookmark. This one is it the white and rose gold? But it is just a white resin with some coppery foiling in there. And I do have some more bookmarks from Jess that I ordered not long ago. I showed you them in a past vlog, but while they're right here, I've got quite a few now. Is the other one in here? Yep, there we go. So I have a nice collection of resin bookmarks, and somebody asked in the comments of my video if these fall out of your book when you're using them. Not really. I suppose it depends. I would say if you're somebody who takes your book everywhere with you and you like throw it in your bag without a book sleeve and stuff, then you do run the risk of them falling out because they're not super thin, but like generally they don't really move. But obviously, like if I'm going to throw a book in a bag like that, actually no, it's still in there. So yeah, they're absolutely fine. I don't go anywhere, we know this, but I also, if I'm going to be more mobile with a book, I do use magnetic bookmark, which are my favorite kind of bookmarks, to be honest. But yeah, no problem with these falling out. They're absolutely fine.
Who said thoughts only cost a penny? That's the case, baby, I'd have plenty. And I've been scrolling up cause my head's heavy, but who's to say I should be ready? Cause I can be emotional, honey, but I let it go sometimes. Oh baby, how it takes me low when I get caught up in my mind. And I don't say sorry cause we're all just human, and the world keeps going, yeah, we all keep moving. All your flaws won't ever be proven, baby, we're all just a little bit human. I'm proud to know I've tried.
I'm almost at the halfway point of Grace Sister now. I'm on page 185 and I'm enjoying it okay. I'm not having the best time with it, like I'm not super into it, and I do think the first 150 pages of this, it took me a while to fully get into the story, and I was struggling quite a bit. It felt quite slow. I wasn't really sure where it's going. It seems to have introduced a lot of elements that I feel are going to link up to a larger plot or to part of like the main event of the book later on, but at this particular moment I have no idea where they're going. Also, I do apologize, I'm gonna hold this because you guys were balanced on my knee and there was quite a bit of wobble there. But now that I'm past that 150 page mark, I am enjoying it a little bit more. Things are happening. Something that I didn't expect has happened, and I'm not sure like how I feel about it right now. Like, I'm not sure if it's something that I like that's happened, because it's kind of changed the setting up a bit, and I quite like the actual setting that we already had going on, which is the most I can say without spoilers really. This book is interesting as well because I feel like Mark Lawrence doesn't use commas where he should, and that is such a very specific thing to pick up on. But punctuation, like when it's done right, you don't really notice that it exists, but when it's slightly off, I feel like you can really tell that there's something missing, and it's just commas feel like they should be there and they're not. And it's not like every single time there should be a comma. There isn't. Like, there are commas in this book, but multiple times throughout this I found a sentence where I feel like it should have a comma and it doesn't, and it feels off to me. So I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. It's a super small specific thing to pick up on, so I doubt many people will have picked up on it, and I'm probably just being a picky bitch, but that's where we're at. So I'm aiming to get to page 300 of this today. It's like 3:30, maybe a bit later. I'm watching Steph's Patreon sprints. Another busy work week has concluded, which I'm real happy about. I am waiting for some stock, which I don't think is going to arrive, so I have left all of my work stuff out in case it did arrive, because I have 2 more orders to pack if that package comes, which I don't think it's going to, which is super frustrating. So I think I'm just gonna kind of give up on that because it's too late for the parcels to make the post now anyway. So I'm just gonna pack all of my stuff away, so that's done. And it's bonfire night tonight as well, which is actually one of my favorite days of the year. I get a lot of questions about bonfire night every year because it's like a UK only thing, but essentially bonfire night is a night where we blow things up to celebrate somebody failing to blow things up. So way back when, this guy called Guy Fawkes attempted to blow up the Houses of Parliament and he failed. So every bonfire night we celebrate the fact that he didn't blow up the Houses of Parliament by having a massive bonfire and setting off a load of fireworks. Makes no sense. The explosions to celebrate a lack of explosions, don't quite understand it, but it's one of my favorite nights of the year because fireworks. So our town has a massive firework display, so we'll be heading there later, and I'm kind of excited, but also kind of like I've had a busy work week and I just want to settle down, be cozy and read this weekend. So I think I'm going to struggle to get the motivation to get up, make dinner, and then head out into the cold, but it should be a good time, so it'll be worth it.
I'm proud to know that I'm just a little bit human. They say it takes time being slow and steady, chasing fame till it rains confetti. No pain, no gain, all the growth and shedding. At least to me from start to ending. Cause I can be emotional, honey, but I let it go sometimes. Oh baby, how it takes me low when I get caught up in my mind. And I don't say sorry cause we're all just human and the world keeps going, yeah, we all keep moving. All your flaws won't ever be proven, baby, we're all just a little bit human.
Good morning, and I say good morning, but I'm pretty sure it's tipped over into afternoon now. Yes, it has. It's 12:05. But I slept in a little bit today, which is fine because it's Sunday. I'm smack bang in the middle of a lazy weekend and I'm having an amazing time. Feel fab. And I tend to get up earlier on the weekends normally, and I think that's because when I wake up at like 8 on a weekday, I think about all of the things that I have to do and I'm like, you know what, no, you're going to sleep for another half an hour. I don't want to deal with this right now. Whereas on a weekend I just have the whole day to kind of do what I want, so I'm more eager to get out of bed, I guess. However, I do kind of want to go out for lunch, and honestly the town that I live in is so full of cafes. There's so many different cafes, but none of them are open on a Sunday, and it just like, it blows my mind because I guess the predominant demographic of things to do in town and cafes and stuff in my town is older people, so I guess they don't feel like it's important to be open on a Sunday. But for me, peak time to go out and get breakfast or lunch is a Sunday. Like, there's no other time throughout the week where I can just go, do you fancy going out for breakfast, or do you fancy going out for lunch? Like, it's a Sunday. Because if I'm going to be doing something on a weekend, I'm going to be doing it on Saturday, and I'll get food while I'm out. But Sunday is the only day where I'll wake up and be like, I want to go out and get breakfast or lunch, and I can't, and it's so frustrating. So I'll see what Curtis thinks, but we'll have to go out of town if we want lunch, which is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, aside from that, we're gonna be having a lazy day. I'm just checking in with you guys because yesterday afternoon, during part 1 of this lazy weekend, I finished Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence, and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. So the first 150 pages of this, I found it quite hard to get into. It was a little bit slow, and we do have, I think I've already mentioned, that you have this little recap at the beginning, and in this recap, Mark Lawrence says he's done it so that the characters don't have to keep telling you things that they already know, which I do really appreciate, because it does annoy me if I'm reading the sequels to a book not long after I've read the first book, and you spend the first 100 pages with the characters like re-explaining what's happened. But then at the same time, because it has been a while since I've read this, I feel like I could have done with just like a little bit of assistance, because the story just kind of goes straight in after that recap, and there's no like just subtle pointing towards things that happened in the book before to kind of help you connect the dots. So this recap, don't get me wrong, it was really good. It gave me a breakdown of the first book and the main things that you needed to know going into the second, but I could have just done with like a couple of conceptual like little context clues alongside some of the things they mention in the first couple of chapters in here. So that probably impacted my enjoyment of the first 100 pages or so while I was getting my brain in order and relearning a little bit about this world. Something that I missed in this one actually is, you know, those little in-between sections in between the parts of the book that I said were in book 1. They don't have any of these at all. So you have a prologue and an epilogue that's set in that timeline that's in between the chapters of book 1. But aside from that, this book isn't sectioned, so it's just one whole thing sandwiched between that prologue and epilogue. And I think that my favorite part of Red Sister actually was those bits, just because I liked seeing the parallels of where the characters are and where we know from those bits that they're eventually going to end up. I still really love Nona in here. I love her as a main character. She has this like bravado in front of being like this tough bitch that doesn't care about anything or anyone, when really she's actually a little bit of a softie. And I like the found family elements in here as well with some of the other sisters of the convent, both the novices and the elder sisters. There are characters in the series that truly piss me off because of how awful they are and how willing they are to be on, like, just not be on the side of good, you know, when they have no reason to be apart from being really fucking irritating people. And plot wise, I did enjoy the plot of this when I got past those first 150 pages and we had a little bit of a setting change, and I'm really intrigued to see how this wraps up in Holy Sister, because I feel like I'm still waiting for the story to come together. I'm still waiting for some sort of like epic reveal where I'm like, oh shit, like that's why that happened, that's why this is going on, which I don't feel like I'm getting with this series. And I think that little bit of feeling like it's cleverly plotted is what's making me give the books in this series 4 stars instead of 5, because I do feel like there's quite a few conveniences in here. And I always talk about like there was nothing that I couldn't predict, and it's not really what I mean when I say things like that. Predictability in a book is fine, because like some people can predict stuff, some people can't, and predicting stuff a lot of the time doesn't take away my enjoyment from a book. I like it when I've predicted something, because that means that the book is well plotted early on. So I couldn't predict a lot of the happenings in this book, which is good because I didn't know where it was going, and because of that there were a few moments of surprise, but then nothing felt well connected. Like I like things like Sanderson where I can connect the reveals back like 500 pages through little subtle plot clues throughout the rest of the text, and that's what I mean when I say that this is missing the thing that makes it 5 stars for me. It's missing that little bit, because I don't know, is that a normal thing? Like, do you guys love it doing that? Do you guys love it when you have a reveal and you can see how it's been plotted the entire book, or is that just like a more specific me thing? It's one of my favorite things about reading, actually. That is one of the things that makes a book 5 stars for me, which I've only just realized in this moment. So this one wasn't on my Bookopoly TBR, it was my Patreon pick from September, and it was Bobby's pick, and also Bobby gifted me this series a couple of years ago, so thank you very much, Bobby, for that. You can be happy that I finally read it now, and I do possibly want to pick up Holy Sister this month if I can, because it's less than 400 pages I think, and it would be good, especially with how I not necessarily struggled, but it took me longer to get into this because it's been so long. I would like to avoid that for Holy Sister if possible. I also keep forgetting to tell you guys, and I forgot in my TBR, and I'm so annoyed at myself that I forgot about this, but I'm also participating in the Clear Your Shit readathon this year, which I also participated in last year, but with being busy at the end of the year and having TBRs and all of the stress of end of year stuff, completely fell by the wayside and I kind of gave up probably before even the end of November. But if you guys don't know what the Clear Your Shit readathon is, it is hosted by Andy at Mouse Reads. I'll put the link to their announcement video in my description box. And it's also hosted by Art, who I don't think has a YouTube channel, but their Instagram is Ink and Plasma. And I'll also link the Twitter in my description box for the readathon as well, because it's kind of like a role-playing style readathon, like a fantasy quest that is run by Ariadne and the narrator, and the narrator is just a sassy character that completely roast the participants. It has a little bit of a storyline as well. So in part 1 we were doing this quest, the quest failed, we all died, and in part 2 we're trying to get our souls resurrected. So the point of the Clear Your Shit readathon, essentially the only real rule that it has, is that you are supposed to be clearing your TBR for the end of the year, so you can't source new books or buy new books to fulfill any of the prompts. But all of the information will be in my description box, and I've put Grey Sister in. I think, oh, I put this in to fulfill the prompt, a book where someone dies, because it's an assassin book, so people are dying left, right and centre constantly. But now that I've finished that, I'm moving on to my one and only Bookopoly role for November, which is Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. This is the August and September book for Catch Up Book Club. I can't really tell you anything actually about this series without spoiling at least some elements, because the whole nature of this book kind of hinges on something that's revealed in like the Live Ship Traders. But this one is a direct continuation of the Live Ship Traders. I don't actually know too much about it, aside from it's the only series in the Eldlings that is published in 4 books. I think that was something to do with issues with the publisher. It was supposed to be a trilogy, and I've heard it reads slightly more YA than the rest of the books in the realm of the Eldlings, which are adult, and it has at least one main character that is a dragon. That is all I know about this, but I am expecting it to be much more like the Live Ship Traders and the Fitz books, so I'm expecting multi-perspective. It is set in that part of the world as well, so I'm expecting to see some cameos. I mean, I've read 1 chapter and 14 pages into this, and we've already had a character from Live Ship Traders, which was really exciting, because I actually still think that Live Ship Traders is my favourite series that I've read from Robin Hobb so far. So this one's on my Bookopoly TBR to read a fantasy. I want to read a decent chunk of this today, because we all know that I've been reading a lot more on the weekends than I have in the week, and I need that done for Sunday, which is when the live show is going to be.
On each day you feel like giving up, I pray you find a reason to hold on. Even one thing that can make you smile is a prayer answered, this I know. For each day you've lived is all by grace, so I know that grace still holds you here. Even all the things that hurt like hell are all part of God's good story. Oh, I thank God that you're in my life. You bring just the right amount of sass and loving words. Oh, I couldn't find a friend who's
so I'm now 90 pages into A Dragon Keeper, and it's already been really sad, and I just was not ready for it. So we know that this is about the dragons of the world. I'm holding the camera in between my knees again, so if there's wobble, I'm sorry. I need to work on my thigh strength. So we know that this one is about dragons, and we also know from the last trilogy the aftermath of what happens in the Live Ship Traders regarding the dragony elements, I guess, of the series. So something that I didn't think about before I started this that became very apparent early on is that because I know that it's running alongside part of Tawny Man, we are going to see the aftermath playing out in the perspective, you know, that's closer to like where it's actually happening instead of hearing about it elsewhere at the beginning of this book, and it's really, really sad. I'm not I'm not into it, but I have, because I didn't actually know what this series is about. I have read the synopsis, which again has spoilers if you're not up to this part in the series. If you are up to this part in the series, it's fine to read the synopsis on this, but I'm really excited because I understand why people are saying that this feels more like YA, but it's not that there's anything different really about the writing or anything, where I'm up to anyway. It's that all of the characters are really young. So the dragon characters that I've been reading about in here are really young, and then we've had two human perspectives. One of them's a kid, I think she's around 10 years old, and the other one is a young woman who's 21 years old. And then we've also had the human perspective of a guy who's 26. But I'm really, really enjoying this so far, and I think I can say for sure now that I prefer the live ship traders. And obviously I can't say if I prefer this, but I really do enjoy the live ship traders more than I enjoy the Fitz books. And I think the reason for that is that when you're in Fitz's perspective, it's quite limiting, because we're only reading from his perspective, and he is only concerned about the things around him and the things that he is concerned in, which is why I always say when I'm reading the Fitz books, it's really funny because there's lots of interesting things going on in the world. Like, Fitz doesn't care about eldlings or dragons or any of that magical stuff in the world. He's focused on some other stuff, which mainly focuses on the wit and the skill, which are relevant in the live ship traders and in this series. But there's it's kind of like having two schools of thoughts about something. So Fitz thinks about the wit and the skill in relation to things that are going on with him and the way that those elements are regarded in the part of the world that he's from. Whereas in this part of the world where people believe very different things, they have a different approach. So they think about the wit and the skill in relation to other things. So I think I prefer the live ship traders because of that multi-perspective element. Really broadens the horizon. It also focuses more on the dragons and the eldlings as opposed to the internal politics of like Book, which is what a lot of the Fitz series is about. And it doesn't focus quite so much on the wit and the skill, even though, as I've said, they are kind of present, just in a different context. I'm doing sprints tonight. I've spent my day making candles, packed a couple of orders, proofed a video, set up a video for editing, and then I did a little candle experiment, which I'm eager to see how it's turned out. I actually don't have high hopes for it, but get off! Don't attack my glasses, please, sir. I don't have high hopes for how it's going to turn out, but if it does turn out some semblance of okay, then I'm really excited about it. And now it is like, it's 4:45 and I just could not be bothered starting something else with only like 20 minutes left of my work day. So I'm just gonna sit around for a little while before I start making dinner, and then hopefully make quite a bit of progress in this during sprints. I find this series and the live ship traders to be a much quicker read. Like I feel like I'm interested in them a lot earlier on in the books, because like with the Fitz books I find that they're very, very slow and you need to settle into the story, and there's a lot of just Fitz plodding around being depressed and living his life, which a lot of the time isn't actually all that exciting. Good evening, guys. I have had a terrible day. Nothing like majorly dramatic, but just a series of very small and I feel kind of improbable, stupid kind of things have happened. So like, I was working today and it's been a little bit of a mishmash day. Like, I prefer to dedicate a day to one thing. So like a day to filming and editing, a day to making candles, a day to packing orders, but not every day happens to fall like that. So this is one of those days where I had lots of random little bits that needed doing, and the best thing to do would be just try and fit them all into one day. So the afternoon I dedicated to making candles. Now at this point I've been making candles for I think 4 years. I actually don't even remember anymore, but I think it's 4 years. And when I started, I remember I got £50 of money for a birthday, and off Amazon I bought like a digital thermometer and some scales and a couple of other bits. So that was like my first equipment, and I was still using the scales up until a couple of months ago, but they were honestly, not only were they covered in wax that I couldn't get off, they were falling apart, so I binned them and got some new ones. But I still had my thermometer. I also have the same glue gun that I've been using the entire time, and today I was wicking my jars with my glue gun, and I've got some new glue sticks, which like nothing fancy, you know. When I need glue sticks I just go into like eBay or Amazon or somewhere. They're quite hard to find in bulk around here, and I order like a pack of 50 glue sticks. So the ones that I most recently got are a lot runnier than any that I've had previously. I'm guessing they have like a lower melting point or something on them. And for the first time in my 4 years of making candles, I think nearly 5 years, I burned myself, and it's actually like, it's quite a nasty burn because the molten glue like landed on me. I'll show you because it's not like gross or anything. It's just a bit like so looking, but like a fully molten piece of glue on my hand. And when it landed on there, I treated it like it was wax because I'm used to splashing hot wax on myself, and I was like, oh, it'll be fine, like it's stinging, it'll cool in a minute and I can flick it off. And then I remembered it wasn't wax, so I was like, oh shit. Just wiped it off without thinking, took a layer of skin with it. Absolutely disgusting. I have medical anxiety, so dealing with it was not fun. Like burns, for some reason, burns, cuts, not for me. And I have no problem with blood. It's not blood that's an issue, and there was no blood here anyway. Run it under the tap. It's actually not sore at all, which is weird because it is quite like it's past one layer of my skin. But I burnt myself, sulked about it for a while and was like, cool, we'll carry on. Burned the tip of my finger with molten glue, and that one it's a lesser burn, so I think that one's gonna blister, which isn't fun. So I did that, and then later on during my last batch of candles that I made for the day, I picked up my thermometer and just dropped it into a full bottle, like not bottle, jug of wax. So now my original thermometer is dead as well, and I'm like, cool, everything is just going so wrong today. And then when I was making dinner, I opened a packet of like chopped cauliflower like this, and it just like exploded, and the cauliflower like hit the wall and bounced back at me. So I've not been having a good day. I'm generally feeling all right though. I went to get my hair done yesterday. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference, like whether it looks super different, because it is just like a freshen up of the same style that I had previously, although I haven't brushed my fringe recently, so that's all clumpy. But just in case you guys wondered about the difference, I did go and get my hair done yesterday, and today's my rest day, like workout wise. So I'm actually really struggling because normally when it's a rest day I have something else on to like force me into getting up after dinner, but now I've got nothing on tonight and I really want to read, which I am gonna do, but I'm just feeling real weird about not having anything to get up and have to do. But I'm on page 340 of this, still really enjoying it. We've had some cameos as well from characters from the Live Shit Traders, and honestly I loved it. I loved it so much. There's something about seeing characters that you know, especially when the character that you're reading from doesn't really know the person and they have like assumptions and stuff about the person. I'm like, excuse me, do not slander my good friend Althea Vestrit. Like, we're not going there. Absolutely do not do that. So I had a great time with that, and this is a slow burn story. Like, we're getting reacquainted with stuff and also getting to know some new characters, but I am like super immersed into it. The only kind of negative point I have to say about this is that it's kind of tedious to read the beginning of it because a lot of things are being explained as though to a new reader, which of course, first book in a new series, even though it is like the extended Eldlings, people are going to pick this up without reading anything else and need all of that kind of stuff explaining to them, whereas somebody who has already read all of the Eldlings books doesn't need that information. And it is, I've noticed it is repetitive in real weird ways. So like a specific example I can think of is that when we were reading from, must have been the perspective of one of the dragons, and in here essentially there is a bunch of dragons that humans said that they would look after. However, the dragons are proving to be troublesome, so they're wanting to move the dragons somewhere else, and the dragons also maybe want to go to this other place. But we're reading from the perspective of this dragon, and she was saying about the area that they're in, all of the trees are like scarred and marked because the dragons will rub themselves up against them, and some trees are broken that way. And then later on in a different chapter, I think that was actually from another character's perspective, and we got to the dragon and it was once again mentioning that the trees were all scarred and the bark was rubbed off them because dragons would rub on them to get rid of pests and stuff on their scales. And it's just little bits like that keep getting repeated from different characters' perspectives, and I'm like, yes, this might be something that a character may, like, the first time they're seeing these trees, they may realize that the trees are scarred, but I don't need to read it again because I already know, because you've already told me in a different perspective. I am, now that I'm in the middle portion of this, feeling the slog a little bit. Like, I'm not as invested in turning pages as I was at the beginning, but I'm still thoroughly enjoying it. I would like to finish it tonight. Probably not going to happen if I'm being realistic, but I think I'm definitely going to get to the page 450 mark, and when we hit page 450 I get to roll for another book, which is exciting.
'Cause you're wonderfully made as the only you. it's hard to leave your bed. Know that we still love you just the same. Every heavy weight you've carried here, is it too much for us to receive? Oh, I thank God that you're in my life. The depth of love we have for you, you might never know. Every
Good afternoon. It's 4:30 on Friday and I have just finished work for the week, and honestly I've had such a stressful work week. I don't think I've actually mentioned to you guys what I've been doing this week work wise, but it is the winter and Christmas candle launch, so like all of the fall stuff is done. Believeathon's restock, the last one will be next week, and I'm bringing in the winter stuff. So I did all of the Christmas candles, including a new Christmas candle, so I had to like do all the photos and stuff and launch that. And also I went through and picked out all of the winter fragrances that I do and stocked all of those, which some of them haven't been in for quite some time. So it's a large restock. It's like twice the size of my standard restock, which most of them are at this time of year. So I did all of that, but also I filmed my first bookshelf tour this week, which I shouldn't have done when I knew I was going to have a stressful work week, and I was convinced that I would have to work tomorrow to get that edited ready for Sunday after already having like all of the candle related stress. But I just finished editing that, so that means that I'm free for the weekend now. I have to do the restock at 7 p.m, but that only takes about 15 minutes to sort out because I've done all of the rest of the prep work already. I'm free and I'm so happy. I'm honestly just so mentally exhausted after this work week. I also woke up with a headache this morning. I didn't read as much as I wanted to last night because of the anxiety that I had from burning my wrist, and I'm one of those people, I really wish I was one of those people who, when I was having bad mental health times, that I could sink into a book for the escapism, but I'm the opposite. So if anything's going on with me mentally, I can't concentrate on a book, I can't sit still. So I played Monopoly with Curtis instead, which took my mind off it and was great. But because of being on edge all yesterday and anxiety, etc., I woke up with a headache this morning. So I'm so happy that I'm finished with work for the week. I don't have any plans for the weekend apart from a live show on Sunday. My main priority for the weekend, or not even the weekend, tonight and tomorrow really, is to finish Dragon Keeper, which I'm currently on page 400 of, so I have 150 pages left, but we'll see how it goes because right now I actually just really want to lie down and have a nap. I might just not wake up until Sunday. That would be great.
There's no doubt my life is better 'cause you're here with me.
Hello. So, oh, this is flickering and I'm not a fan. So I finished Dragon Keeper and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. The reason it's 4 stars and not 5, like I was into this immediately and the plot started to, or like the pacing started to dip a little bit throughout the middle, and the point that this ends on is not like your normal end of book kind of climax. It felt like a very middle of book kind of situation, but I do believe that this is the book that Robin Hobb, well this entire series, I think Robin Hobb had issues with the publisher and the schedule, and they wanted her to cut this one down, which is why it ends on such a anticlimactic kind of note. So essentially, because it does have that little bit of drag throughout the middle and we don't really go anywhere with the plot. It does have a plot, like I mentioned briefly that they're planning on moving the dragons somewhere and the dragons want to move somewhere, but it just doesn't really kind of build into anything. It feels like we ended kind of 2/3 of the way through a book, but I was immersed in this from the beginning. I really enjoy Robin Hobb's writing style. A couple of weird things with the repetition in there, and I did notice like a couple of editing errors in this as well, which is weird because it was published in 2009, so this is not a first paperback or anything. This should be like a 3rd or 4th round paperback at least, so you'd think that they wouldn't have those mistakes, but it did. Just a thing to note, I guess. I will say that the atmosphere in here is great because it mainly takes place in the Rain Wilds. Obviously it's the Rain Wilds Chronicles. It takes place in that part of the world, which I think is one of the more magical parts of the world, probably the most magical part of the Elderlings world. And they essentially build all of their cities in trees, so it's like this magic, like woodsy fantasy tree village. Something that's really interesting about the areas of Robin Hobb's world is that she's built them very believably in terms of they have different societal issues. So Bingtown, where one of the main characters of this book is from, are very, very sexist. They don't treat the women of the world very well, and the interesting thing about it as well is that women used to be in charge of everything. They used to be the heads of the families and like the top traders and in control of a whole bunch of stuff that they're just not anymore, and they've kind of reverted to this kind of sexist society, which is really weird. Whereas in the Six Duchies, where the Fitz books mainly take place, you don't have those issues. Like they treat women equally, and then there are other areas of the world where women are kind of like superior to men. They have a matriarchal society. Then there's different takes on things like same-sex relationships, slavery and stuff throughout the different parts of the world. So it's always really interesting to venture into different parts and see what the takes on that society are, if that makes sense. This book does heavily deal with disability, I want to say, in a variety of ways. Some of the ways it's treated in this area is not entirely, actually, like, it's just really awful. But the discussions, I think some of the discussions were interesting, and I'm interested to see how things unfold and change throughout the rest of this series. Plenty of content warnings in here as well. I always find there to be more content warnings in the live ship traders side of things than I do in the Six Duchies side, which is also interesting. But content warnings in this one for a whole ton of sad animal stuff over a variety of different kinds of things. It was like really upsetting for me particularly, because that is something that I really don't like to read. Obviously it makes sense within the story in this, but it is there, and there is a lot and lots of different kinds. Also in here we have content warnings for sexual assault, domestic abuse, and a whole ton of gaslighting. So there were some sad parts in this, which we all know that Robin Hobb is known for, but also some like, I think that Robin Hobb deals with things that are hard to read really well, because she doesn't shy away from delving into it, but it never comes across as gratuitous. After reading this, even though I did only give it 4 stars in comparison to a lot of the Robin Hobb books I've given 5 stars, I still think that I definitely prefer the live ship traders side of the world than I do the Six Duchies, because it is just so limiting being in Fitz's head. And as soon as I started this and I had the same experience with A Ship of Magic, it's just so much easier to get into the story and so much compelling from the start than the Fitz books are, where you need like 200-300 pages to actually get into the book. So yeah, the live show is on this tomorrow. I'm excited to see what everybody else thinks, because I know at least one of the catch-up book club was not enjoying this in the beginning, and because the pace dips through the middle and doesn't really pick up, I don't think that's going to have changed much. So I'm really interested to get everybody else's thoughts on this. I am a little worried about going forward into this series, because I know that Robin Hobb had a whole ton of issues with the publisher, which made things like disjointed and stuff. Like it was only supposed to be 3 books, it ended up being 4. This one ends like in a place where it doesn't feel natural for it to end, and I know that the last 2 books are only like 400 and something pages each. So I'm hesitant going forward, because I feel like there's potential in this series for 5-star reads and it to be one of my favorite Hobb series, but because I know about all those issues, I'm like, but what if they ruined it, you know? Like, what if all of those publishing issues just kills the series? So in terms of what I'm going to be reading next, I have actually done my next roll. I do actually know what the next book that I'm going to be picking up is, but I'm going to be a real bitch about it and tell you guys that I have included that content for the start of next week's vlog, and I'm going to be wrapping this one up here. But because I do feel kind of bad about being like, yeah, you don't get to see that for another week, I will let you guys know that I'm doing another install of my unhaul project, where essentially all of the rolls that I roll next week I'm going to be picking from the books on my unhaul cart. So you have that to look forward to, because I know quite a lot of you guys do enjoy my unhaul project. I really wanted to squeeze in another round before the end of the year, and essentially I have the perfect opportunity to do so. So that is it for this week's vlog. I do hope you guys have enjoyed it if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.